All right, everyone, out here at Canyon Lake, see the dam here. I am at Overlook Park. Come out, do a little fun diving. Kamal was a little dirty, a lot of tubers. Across the lake over there, you can see North Park. I've been there multiple times. I've never been here to Overlook Park. Just came down this hill here. Water's a little blown around that corner, but overall out there a little further, looks decent. Go underwater out here today, do a little bit of testing with a underwater light Orca-Torch sent me to do a review on. But let's get in the water, do some diving.
All right, so let's get to the diving. The shoreline here, you see how close I am to the shoreline. It's actually a pretty steep drop off here. I'm at about 6 feet. I'm just a few feet away from the shoreline. These rocks are going to start dropping away from me. A lot of grass right here. Pretty shallow, plenty of sunlight for them to grow. So they're getting pretty thick here. This is my Orca-Torch D710. I did a review on this light, on this dive. Ended up being a pretty good little light for me. So I'm coming down, I'm heading down a little bit deeper. You see all this grass coming up to a ledge. I'm at about 9 foot right now. And this ledge just ends and it drops off into oblivion. I cannot quite see anything down below this ledge, so I'm just going to start my descent here. And this is going to basically come down in steps. See some bluegill here, little perch. These guys are going to be real common in the video. But essentially this cliffside here, it steps down. You could think of it like giant stairs. It does angle down pretty steeply, but little ledges you'll hit, and then it'll be a drop and another ledge, so on and so forth. I'm not quite sure how deep this lake is. I end up going to 80 feet on this dive. I'm pretty sure there's deeper areas than that. So I'm at 27 feet. Checking my compass. I know 120 is pointing away from the shoreline. I'm just going to run that reciprocal course heading back. I'm just trying to make sure I'm heading directly away from the shoreline and straight toward deeper water. So you see it's getting a little darker here, getting a little bit greener, losing some of the light as I'm starting to get a little bit deeper. And on the descent here, I'm checking my depth pretty regularly. I'm not checking my air so much yet. I know I've got a full tank. I'm mostly checking my depth. So I'm at about 60 feet here. The temperature's starting to drop now. I'm starting to encounter some trees. There's a lot of fishing line in these trees. But I'm kind of stopping at the edge here. I'm reluctant to get down inside the tree, so I stop, and I'm going to kind of swim along the wall, just on the shallow side of these trees here. This kind of reminds me of jetty diving, with all the rock and fishing line everywhere that you can get tangled in. Kind of reminds me of the jetties. The biggest difference there is jetty dives in salt water, there's pretty much life everywhere. Whereas these freshwater dives in lakes, I don't do these a whole lot. And the reason is there's just not a lot of life down here. It's really just a bunch of rocks and some dead trees. A few perch here and there, some bass here and there, maybe a catfish. That's really it. Not a lot of life going on down here. But anyway, so swimming along, I'm kind of, again, I'm following this depth contour. Staying kind of on the high side of these trees. I'm trying to find a gap in the trees where I can descend a little deeper without being so much inside the trees themselves. So again, I'm just swimming along this ledge here, looking in the cracks, looking mostly for crawfish. That's likely what's going to be hiding in these little gaps here. Just kind of testing this light out. Right here I'm passing about 68 feet, 69 feet, I'm hitting 70. The temperature at this point is dropping very rapidly. I hit a depth of about 80 feet, temperature was 62 degrees. It got pretty darn cold. I left my hooded vest behind, so a big debris field here. I see a couple lawn chairs, like beach style chairs, a bunch of other debris with the rocks on top of the debris. Not sure how this debris got here and how the rocks got on top of the debris, but yeah, a bunch of man-made stuff there. See a fishing weight hanging from a fishing line here. And that stuff's all over the place. You really got to watch out to try to avoid getting hung up in that stuff. Moving along, you see I'm down into the trees just a little bit here. I'm trying to keep a good close eye looking for... I don't want to blindly swim into that stuff and start getting tangled up in it while it's tangled up in the trees. I do have a knife. I can cut myself out of most of that stuff, but I'd just as soon avoid getting tangled in it. You see all the silt, all the rocks here. This is a pretty rocky bottom. There's just a thin layer of silt on top of the rock. And then there's these trees kind of growing out from the rocks. A lot of the roots are exposed, or these trees have kind of fallen over. A lot of them are laying horizontal. A lot of them starting to kind of flatten out here. Pretty good little ledge at this point. This light was a pretty good light. I used it quite a bit on this dive. On the brightest setting, this thing puts out about 1700 lumens. There's a mid-range setting at about 800 and a low range at 4. This thing will run anywhere from 2 to 8 hours, roughly, of continuous use. So pretty good little light. Runs a long time. There's that fishing weight again. Not seeing a whole lot of life. The trees kind of coming out of the murk is a little surprising. Sometimes all of a sudden it's just this big shadow kind of comes out of the murky water as you approach them. Again, kind of going back and forth between the trees and checking out the ledge here. Try not to stir the water up near that ledge. All this kind of silty stuff into the water. I'm passing 54 feet. I'm starting to ascend a little bit here. I hit my deepest point. I hit 80 feet. Got really, really cold. I'm up at 45 now. I really didn't like it down there at about 80 feet. It was so cold, especially without my hooded vest. At 62 degrees, that's pretty darn cold. Especially when you're in the water, you're going to lose body heat. You know, a lot faster, about 25 times faster than you do in air. Pretty painful. Kind of stings your face and whatnot. So anyway, I've come back up a little bit. It's a good hole here. I saw a crawfish in this hole. The GoPro is not the best camera for doing macro photography. Plus, it's on my mask. It's attached to my face. I'm not exactly going to cram my face in that hole. But just take my word for it. There was a crawfish in that hole. Turning back around. Got a big flat area here. I'm all the way up at 27. See, the water's not quite as green. A little bit more light shining down. See a little bit more of these bluegill and the perch and stuff swimming around. They do tend to be up shallower than some of the other fish. A lot of the bigger fish like carp or bass and things like that a lot of times will be a little deeper. This is a small bass here. Usually quite a bit of life between, 20, 30 feet. A bunch of the little stuff swimming around. Another perch, a little couple of bluegill there. Another small bass. You can tell because he's elongated. He's not so round. The body's real narrow and long. Just hanging out up here shallow. Again, I'm at about 22 feet. Just kind of looking around. Turn to my right. This big flathead catfish swims right up to me. Big bass up there above him, right behind him. Of course, they both kind of take a look at me and they take off. There's a second bass with that first one. A couple of big bass and a decent-sized flathead catfish. They turned and went back down, so I turned around, just kind of gave chase, followed them down here. See that big bass hanging out? They're really liking the this root structure and the branches where they're close to the bottom. Creates a big, like a little hidey hole underneath for these fish to hang out in and ambush prey. Swimming around, I'm looking for that catfish. I know he's gone inside here somewhere. Just kind of checking out their little hiding spot here. Looking around, trying to find where that flathead went. Here he comes, coming right back to me. He's very scared of me. There's that big bass again. Now, that catfish kind of just wants to be left alone. He just wants to go in his hole and sit there and be left to himself. The bass, they're a little bit shy. They will kind of come up and get a quick look at you, but they're usually going to take off. You're not going to really get to see a lot of them after they take off. So he's taking off, so I'm going to go ahead and focus on that catfish at this point. I'm looking to see if there's maybe another catfish or something else sitting in there, but I don't see any of that. I'm kind of change positions here. I'm moving around to the side, get a better view of this catfish. Kind of black and green. But he's kind of just wedged himself into this hole here. Rested his chin on a rock. He's just going to kind of sit there and chill like an ostrich with his head stuck in the sand. Feels like he's safe as long as he's got his head stuck in a hole. He's not really digging me shining the light on him a whole lot. Sparking torch. You see that very bright setting? That's the, they call it the turbo setting. If you hold the light button down for a half a second, you'll get 3,000 lumens out of it temporarily until you let go of the button. Pretty nice feature on that little light. I can hold that and brighten it up for a short period of time. This cat, he's probably 16 to 18 inches. I'd say he's around 3.5 pounds. You know, fat little cat. He'd be something nice to catch on a rod and reel. He'd put on a skillet. But can't shoot those. They are game fish in Texas, so just here looking and videoing. Big bass coming back around. This guy's kind of dark. He doesn't really have any bands down on his side like a lot of bass typically would. He's kind of just a flat brown color. I'm not sure what type of bass that was, but he was a decent size. And that catfish, he's just hanging out under that ledge here. Just thought it was pretty cool. He wasn't shy. He wasn't trying to really get away from me. He was just trying to be left alone. He really didn't like me shining the light on him. You see here, he keeps kind of turning away, trying to move off a little bit. But he wasn't all that shy, so I kind of wanted to take advantage of the opportunity while I could get kind of close up and get some decent footage of this catfish here. So he's had about enough of me. I've already been looking at him here for a couple of minutes, but he's about had it. He's not really digging me, waking him up constantly, so at this point I'm kind of done harassing him too. He's going to turn around and swim off, and I'm just going to kind of let him go his own way at this point. To be honest, I'm surprised he gave me that much time to get that close to him before he actually took off on me. So I turn back around. I'm going to turn my attention back to that hole down here. Just kind of curious if there's anything else hiding down here in this hole. See a bunch of the little perch and stuff like that. Not a whole lot more. That big bass comes in again here, takes a peek at me. That's the second one. He's got more of a black stripe down his side than the other one did. Again, those bass will typically come in, take a quick peek, turn around, and they're gone pretty quick. So, pretty big tree there. The branches are kind of sticking out horizontally from the cliffside. You tell I've gone a little bit deeper, chasing that catfish and the bass down to that little hole they went to. I've come back a little bit deeper again than what I was, so it's a little darker here. But viz is pretty fair. I'm at 55 feet. You see this tree here? It's kind of laying horizontal. It's covered, absolutely 100% covered in zebra mussels. They're an invasive species here. You're obligated to rinse your motor if you come out of one lake and go to another, just to help prevent spreading these guys. Every inch of this tree is covered in those zebra mussels. The edge of those mussels are razor sharp. If you were to grab a hold of a rock that had zebra mussels on it, without gloves on, they would just kind of slice right through your fingers. I know that because I've done that. So I'm not a big fan of those zebra mussels. A lot of times I'll crush those up with a knife, and the perch, or the little bluegill, will come up and eat the mussels that come out of the shells as you kind of crush them up with the back of your knife. So here I've turned. I'm kind of swimming along the ledge, just looking to see what I can find. Again, it's fresh water, not a whole lot going on here, aside from the bottom structure itself. One of the cool things about structures themselves like this is this cliff, there's a big hollow in the rock here. It goes pretty good ways back there. It's hard to tell on the GoPro. First viz is much better first person, but big gap goes way back in there. I was looking for anything hiding in that hole. I didn't really see anything in there, but it was kind of cool to see that deep little crevice there. This bass, if you look on his tail, there's a spot. Just like on a redfish, that's a false eye. Normally smaller fish will have a spot on the tail as a false eye. Fish have to swallow other fish head first. That false eye tricks bigger fish into biting them on the tail instead of on the head, and they have a chance to get away. I'm not sure why bass has a false eye. They don't normally. So at this point, I'm starting to get a little bit lower on air. I'm going to slowly start an ascent here and kind of creeping my way upwards, kind of zigzagging my way back and forth up towards shallower water. You see the grass up here. This is this 9-foot ledge as I was coming down. It's a big overhang too. It doesn't just drop straight down. It's actually an overhang. You can tell when you hit that shallower water, grass is real thick. A lot of perch slash bluegill in that grass. Juvenile bass in the grass as well. So at this point, I'm about 1100 psi. I've decided it's probably time to just go ahead and end the dive. At this point, I'm kind of bored on the dive, and I think I've seen everything I'm going to see. I'm going to start heading up here. The water's going to get cloudier. Of course, right on the shoreline, it was a little bit windy. It's kind of churning the water up a little bit. But I'll hit the surface here, and I'll have some swimmers right in my face. It's just kind of how it goes when you share a beach with swimmers. But thanks for watching the video. Again, this was a new dive, new location for me at Lookout Park at Canyon Lake. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope to see you guys on the next one.